Oh, alrighty, guys. So just as a heads up, the session is being recorded as well. We do record all our webinars and sessions. We will be posting them on YouTube tomorrow with everyone having access to the links. But while we're doing this, guys, we've got the doors are open. So welcome to all the early entrants. Thanks for lining up out the front, guys. We will give everyone a few minutes just to jump on board. It's really nice to see all these familiar faces and to have the opportunity to bring you guys all together to have this conversation today. So we're really grateful for your time, panelist members. All righty. What we might do, guys, is we still have a few people jumping in. We'll just start with some housekeeping for today's session. So I'll introduce, obviously, myself, Caleb. I'm one of the co-founders of Greensquare. I'll be mediating and running the session for us today. We will have a time for a Q&A session with our panelists at the end of the session. So you guys will notice on your display there is a Q&A section where you can actually enter questions. You can do this anonymously, or you can actually attach a name to it and we can have a discussion about it. But do feel free to add any of these questions at any time, and we will try and address them. Obviously, conscious of time, we may not be able to get to all questions today, but we will do our best to get to as many as we can. All righty. We've still got a couple people loading in. All righty, guys. What we might do is I'll start off with a bit of an introduction. Just obviously, we have a lot of people, and it was quite exciting to see the range of different people that we have on board. With myself and Jan, who may be in the bottom corner. Jan is one of the co-founders of Greensquare. So I might just ask Jan if you would like to introduce yourself to everyone on the session this afternoon, mate.
Yeah, sure. If you want to. Yeah, my name is Jan. I'm based in Berlin, Germany. I've lived here almost my whole life. I met with Chris, one of the other co-founders, as I think I was 2 years old, maybe. So we go a long way back. And along the way, we met Caleb and Marius, so the other two co-founders. I'm on the tech side of the team, so I oversee the tech development with Marius as a developer and me on the kind of project management side. I worked in different industries before, sustainable energy, for example, or also healthcare, and did digital project there. Got into coffee. I don't know. When I started studying, I think I got into coffee because in my house there was a roastery, and so that guy got me interested in especially coffee. I want to say 10 years ago. It's a lot more than that, actually. So yeah, that's
dating me. Yourself there, mate.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Thanks for that, Jan. So we will be coming back to Jan after our session because we have a quite exciting kind of live presentation that we're going to take us through quite quickly at the end of our session today. But it looks like most people are coming in. For anyone who has just jumped onto the session, thanks for hopping on this afternoon, guys. Just letting you know, in the bottom of your screen, you will see a Q&A section. We do have some time aside to be having a Q&A discussion with our panelists today. So please feel free to log any questions in there at any time, and we will address them at that time. Once again, depending on how many questions we come in with, if we can't get to them all, we'll look to actually address them and potentially be able to provide a report out to everyone afterwards with an addressment of them, so we don't take too much of our prestigious panel's time today. But yeah, so just to kick it off as well, we did have quite a spread of people coming onto the session. Some people are quite aware of ourselves and what we're up to, and some people are quite new to the project. So I just wanted to take the opportunity again once again, I'll introduce myself, Caleb Holstein. I'm co-founder of Greensquare, along with Jan, Chris Meyer, and Marius, who aren't on our call today. But just as an introduction, Greensquare is a platform and software solution for the coffee industry to facilitate the procurement and management of green coffee. Greensquare provides coffee roasters and traders the ability to manage their entire green coffee procurement process, from search, sample, quote, contract, to orders and to drawdown, allowing all parties from multiple traders and roasters to have an efficient and information-rich foundation to connect, communicate, and transact. This is a project that we've been working away in the background, and a lot of our panel members have been there along with us for this entire journey, assisting and advising along this way. But we are at the foot of the mountain and actually deploying at the moment, which is really exciting for us. All right, so for a quick overview, guys, we do have our panel discussion to talk about some opportunities for forecasting and how we can manage our coffee in 2023. But to really understand what we can do when we look forward as a roasting community, we have to understand what we've been through. And it's quite a traumatic, this might be more of a support group for us traders and roasters alike after the last 12 to 24 months that we've been through. But just to look back and to understand some of the challenges that we have faced in this highly volatile market, some of the learnings from this, and some of the things that are actually exciting for us looking forward about ways we can actually learn from these challenging times. Alrighty, so I will do a quick introduction of all our panelists. I think Jan might drop his camera off for us now. We'll pull you back. We will see you shortly. Thanks, mate. So I'll just do a quick introduction for our roaster representatives on the panel this afternoon. We have the wonderful Anne Cooper, who has her roaster in the background for us. And we have Saxon Wright as well, who will be talking from the roaster's perspective for us. And then from our traders, we're lucky enough to have some of representatives from greensquare's cornerstone trader partners. So we have Kyle Humphries from Sucafina Specialty. We have Rudy Huemer from InterAmerican Coffee. And we have Dave Boudrie from Project Origin. Thank you very much, guys. All righty. I reckon we should kick into it. So as I mentioned, guys, I think it's an important opportunity for us to kind of look back on I say year, but it's, if we're all honest, it's 12 to 24 months of chaos that we've experienced in a market from a time that had been quite consistent for us. So as a slight review over this time, the past 2 years, we've had to navigate quite a volatile market. It has been the most volatile it's been over the past decade. We've experienced this year the C price topping out at just under 260 USD a pound, along with container price rates skyrocketing, availability very scarce, as long as freight delivery and delays. We've had clearance problems. We've had all these challenges which have affected both roasters and traders uniquely, but also very similar ways that we've all been affected by these challenges. But obviously, with the end of 2022 coming and a new year on the cusp, we thought it was a really nice opportunity to be able to look forward as an industry and to bring this amazing panel together to actually see potentially what have we learned from this volatile market and what are some of the ways that we can potentially navigate in the future better in how we're managing or how we're communicating or how we're facilitating the purchase and procurement of green coffee. All right, so to kick off, guys, I'll probably put this to our traders to start, if that's all right, guys. But it would be interesting to see from a trader's perspective, some of the learnings from the past 12 to 24 months, the quite volatile market that you guys would have from this. So some of the things that you've had to deal with or the learnings that you've taken from this. I might pass to you first, if that's all right, Rudy.
Hey, yeah, okay, sure, I'll kick off.
Thanks, mate.
So it's certainly been an interesting like couple of years. You know, one of the things that we've learned is that we know very little. That's not very helpful, but in hindsight, we can learn from the market movements or the ups and downs. What's been really difficult on our end, at least, is to gauge the amplitude of those movements, jumps of 10, 15 cents overnight, or sometimes even more than that. It's been really challenging. So we have tools in place to mitigate market movements called hedging. But even with those, it's really difficult to protect our business. So roasters are not the only ones who are being taken on the ride. Traders do experience it as well. I'd say what I've seen work and what I would recommend is that people don't try and play the market. It's too difficult, if not maybe impossible, to really figure out what's going to happen next. It's a bit like, that reminds me a little bit of that retail trading craze during COVID. I don't know anybody, I mean, at least I don't know about you guys, but I don't know anybody around me that's become a millionaire by, trying to do day trading. It's coffee. If anybody could predict where coffee is going, there would be some seriously rich people out there. And I haven't seen that happen. So, I think from my perspective, at least, I always recommend roasters to figure out what works for their cost of goods, to make sure that they can keep the lights on and they can keep going, and keep paying their staffs, and not chase, the golden goose to, just go with what go with the price. You might win, you might lose. Yeah, maybe in 6 months you look back on it and you think, if only I had waited a bit longer, I would have gotten a better price. But at the time, you couldn't foresee it. So make sure that you lock in prices that work for you for mid to long term. And I must say mid to long term, I would recommend 6 to 12 months. So you don't get any surprises. Your price is locked in, your costs are locked in, your revenue. I mean, at least your cost of sales, your price of sales is locked in as well, give or take.
Yeah.
So how much you need to sell, and you have a degree of certainty, and then you can only focus on running your business instead of try to gamble in a way.
And I think that's, sorry to cut you off there, Rudy, but I think that's a really important point, is with those big jumps, we've seen jumps that a lot of people wouldn't have experienced, because obviously we had almost 10 years coming off the back of, I think it was about 2011 when the market was last as volatile as it has been. So I think those jumps have really forced people to look at the market a lot more and force people to think they can maybe work the system. But it does bring up a really interesting question about the opportunity to actually be comfortable with booking forward contracts and fixing prices that you can actually make work as a company. I might jump to you next, Kyle, if that's all right, mate. I'd just love to hear some of the learnings that you've had from your role with Sucafina Specialty.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rudy sort of touched on it pretty well, but I think communication is key. I think talking to clients, I guess before the recent I wouldn't say recent, but before the volatility in the last 18 months, I think just generally there was a little less back and forth and a little less transparency in conversations between importers and roasters. So yeah, if that's a positive takeaway, I think it sort of has urged us to talk a little more openly, be a little bit more flexible, kind of share knowledge and kind of work through it together. So that's something I think we urge to continue moving forward, whether we have this level of volatility in the future or not.
Yeah, and I think that's the opportunity we have there, Kyle. That's a really nice point to touch on, is we have an opportunity to learn that what this has forced us to do as an industry and what we can actually take from this to use going forward. So I think communication is something that for myself and the team at Greensquare, we stand behind wholeheartedly, because it's about facilitating that communication for both parties to actually be able to both understand each other's side, to be able to make the most informed and correct decisions at the right time. So I might pass to you quickly, Dave, just to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to very much echo some.
We might have you muted. Sorry, Dave. No, we got you now.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm going to echo very much some of the words that Rudy has said as well. I mean, there's I'm in Melbourne, and there's a big building in South Bank that if you want to go and gamble, go and spend your time and money there rather than gambling on the market. And I think it's one thing that we've learnt in the good times in a lot of way that will stand good stead in volatile times. It's don't gamble on the market if the price is consistent where you need it to be, where you can buy coffee, roast coffee, sell it, and make enough money to do that process again. That is a good price for you to lock in as a roaster. And I mean, I'm not going to tell anybody how to run their business, but if with certain importers who look at there and have daily fluctuations who are on the C market, people will sit there and gamble with a cent or half a cent a pound either way. And that's in the good times. And as Rudy said as well, we've gone over the last sort of 18 months of prices changing 10 to 15 cents overnight. And that is uncertainty that I don't want to deal with. And, I couldn't imagine for a roaster would deal with it. So one thing that I've always said, especially in the good times, this is very relevant, that you will buy insurance on your car, not because the worst is going to happen. I hope for the best, but it's there, as the word says, it is insurance. You buy coffee at a price that you can make money on, and that is insurance of you have your costing set for however long you take that contract out, and it buys you certainty. And as again, echoing the words of Rudy and Kyle, once you have that certainty in your costs, it allows you to focus on actually running your business.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things and I think as Rudy touched on it, the trend just in the general society of the opportunity for more trading opportunities of what would be classed as day traders in the general stock market has potentially turned people to that opportunity of maybe trying to game the system in some way. So it is about understanding that and having that security over that time. But thank you very much for your insight on that as well, Dave. What I will jump to for our next question, I'll start to pass to our roasting representatives on the panel. But obviously, in the light of this volatile market, it would be great to understand if maybe I can start with yourself, Anne, but to understand some of the ways that you might have been able to navigate the volatile market, or if there is ways that you've had to change how you've managed things. I get from your perspective, you would have quite a network of roasters you would have seen facing these challenges as well.
Yeah, because I deal with quite a large range of roasters, small, medium, and large, and I think the key words obviously is change, managing prices. I mean, because I think pre-COVID we all had it pretty sweet. We could get coffee whenever we wanted. We could haggle a little bit with prices, all that kind of stuff, and we just sort of all of a sudden lost that ability, pretty quickly. A lot of roasters would have been focusing mostly on wholesale, and then all of a sudden that was gone overnight, and all of a sudden they had to change focus with their business to retail, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because retail is pretty, great in terms of profit margin and stuff like that. And then as the guys were sort of, starting to touch on with realizing your business costs, definitely the biggest, terror that's, struck into all roasters, businesses is seeing their profit margin all of a sudden becoming quite small with the increase in the average price per kilo of green. And so, blend, average prices are challenged, still being challenged. They've all gone up at least by $4 or $5 a kilo. And so if we don't, navigate that price increase and don't change our prices accordingly, then we will see that profit margin be impacted quite significantly. So there's been a lot of shift in focus from wholesale to retail, price per kilo. And having to pivot and change. I think just the word change is quite terrifying for a roaster because it means changing beans. It means a change in roasting approach. We get very comfortable roasting the same coffees, over and over again. And then we've got that challenge of, moving with different coffees and different, things there. So, but so there's, that's probably the biggest is that shift in, whether it be market, the beans, the prices, and just, it's really made roasters have to sit up and really focus hard on how they're running their business as the guys have alluded to, for sure.
I think that's a really good point there. And this is something that I think that I would touch on as well, is that as someone who entered the industry in the last 10 years, once again, not to date myself, but as someone who entered the industry, there is a generation of roasters that were born and started in the around $1 USD per pound market. And there are a lot of businesses that had started in that time who hadn't seen the challenges that other generational businesses had seen. So this is a landmark for this generation of global coffee roasters to understand and learn from these challenges. And this is why it's amazing to have an opportunity to have an open forum and discussion like this, to make people aware and comfortable that we are all facing these same challenges, and we can find tools and resources out of these challenges to then be able to be stronger and more resilient in the future. One thing I will touch on as well for yourself, Anne, is I know you do have some tools and kind of resources that are available for that, helping roasters to actually control their costings.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. So any of the equilibrium roasters, they've got access to like cost calculators and spreadsheets, and so they can use those tools to really help themselves work out where they're sitting, and so they can see where they were, where they are now, and really work on their costings a lot better. And of course, understanding, it's really highlighted more than ever our relationship with the traders, because, we need you guys, to sort of, with our businesses. And of course, a slight shift in mindset in terms of how we manage our purchasing. So having to deal with, rightly so, shorter contracts, maybe a bit more spot buying, stuff like that. But again, it's just all about how to deal with the change. I think that's probably been, one of the biggest things. And of course, the pricing side of things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks for
Definitely
that.
tools to help for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I might pass to Sax now. I'd love to hear your perspective, obviously with Pablo and Rusty's, but obviously just your industry experience as well, mate, to hear about some of the ways that you guys might have navigated or had to adjust your purchasing and management of coffee over this time.
Yeah, no, it's good. And look, a bunch of those comments are really great already. I mean, I think for us, we had to look at the broad industry and actually just recognize there is a structural shift that's taken place. Like, I think we can talk about rapid change and lots of those little things, but I think we've fundamentally moved the needle, and the industry has and is going to continue to adapt to a new environment. And I think we need to, first of all, just accept that as a mind shift certainly at a business level for us to just go, yep, things are different. And yeah, it might relax back down again, and we might see softening of the dollar and even the C or some other things. But my view is it's not going to go back to where it was. And certainly if we're waiting or hoping that it does, then I think we're in a dangerous position. So better to accept the new reality and develop our business around that. So I guess that's the philosophy we've taken with that, is to accept that position. And I guess from our point of view, I kind of like to look at it in three areas. So I think of it in terms of price, product, and profile, in terms of our green coffee, and those kind of three things. And they're all important. Price is an interesting one. It's probably the easiest one to deal with because, fundamentally it's just gone up. But for us, that's been, taking our customers on the journey and really, and it's not just putting our prices up to them, although obviously that's part of it, but it's helping our end customers accept a higher price for them as well. So for the cafe market, that means really working with our customers to put up their price and not think of it in a kilo price, but in a price per cup. So we take a much more strategic approach of going, okay, well, what does that mean at a cup level? How much coffee is going in? How many cups are they making? And something we forget is new equipment, new grinders. There's a lot less waste than there used to be. So, to Anne's point, yeah, I mean, coffee used to be cheaper, years back, but actually we've got more efficiencies as well. And so that all feeds into it. So it's kind of like thinking of it right at the tip of the industry and what's happening there, and understanding that. And accepting that those prices need to flow through. And I think that's, in some ways, it's good because it's bringing the industry closer. We're now accepting a closer relationship with traders because we have to work closely with them, especially if we are, getting less coffee. Like last year, for us, that was a problem. We had contracts, but if they didn't get delivered, we had to find spot coffees pretty quick to cover gaps, which meant more cupping and more, trialing and seeing who had what product. And that kind of left us thinking about, okay, well, how does that work? And we do need those close relationships with traders and even understanding what's happening back at a farm level. So I think it's brought the industry closer, which I think is a good thing. But us as a roaster, kind of sitting in the middle, is recalibrating the expectations people have of price. And then for us, adjusting that and going, okay, what is our product? And so by product, I mean, the coffee itself, what we can actually access physically. And to Dave's point, like, we need to be planning for the longer term. We can't just be, running around grabbing spot all the time, hoping that prices come down. I think we actually need to have that continuity of product, and really be able to develop our blends, which then leads into, the profile. And so for us, we really think about the profile of coffees and how they work together. And if we're just jumping around coffee to coffee, it's almost impossible to keep continuity in profile and that end taste experience that we want customers to have. So I guess we try and balance the continuity of product, planning for that continuity of profile, and then managing the price and recalibrating our price expectations, both forward and backward in the supply chain.
Yeah. I think thanks for that insight there, Sax. It's really interesting to hear. And I think one thing that popped out for me that I might just grab on quickly there for a second. I forget everyone else is in the room and I just get excited to talk about it with you, mate. But I just jump on the fact there that I think it's really interesting when you talk about the recalibration of communication and expectations. Because like you mentioned, as a roaster, you sit in this kind of spot, obviously between the producers and the trading houses and then the final consumers, and that facilitation of communication. We are jumping a little bit ahead, but I think it kind of works. So as the mediator, I get to do what I want. We did have a preempted question that leads on quite nicely from that point there, Sax. That preempted question came through was actually about the communication of price of a cup to the general consumer market in Australia at the moment. And this is quite a conscious discussion that's kind of happening in lots of different formats. So it's a good opportunity for us to take this here, but it is a challenge. And I think it would be great to get maybe your thoughts about that, Sax, about the communication to potentially your cafe partners about how to put a price up or what a price could be going up to.
Yeah, and it's a critical part of the transition we're in. And typically coffee prices, the end, certainly at cafe level, they just haven't gone up anywhere near what they should have been. And we've just been too reluctant to put up prices over the years. And we've been stuck forcing our increased costs of operating back down the supply chain, when actually end consumers just need to pay more for their cup of coffee. I mean, you go out to have a glass of wine and spend $15 and maybe have 3 or 4 of them, right? But if coffee goes up just a little bit, everyone throws their hands in the air. So it's kind of like, well, no, we actually need to change that. And so we're, and not just us, but a lot of roasters are working with cafes to help cafes do it, and to move past but the cafe across the road is, I'm going to lose all my business. And it's like, actually, we're in an interesting time where everyone's pretty used to prices going up and the inflationary market is pretty heavy. So it's actually a good chance to do it. And I think we should, as an industry, grab hold of it. I mean, I say that, I think New South Wales is probably the laggard in terms of putting prices up. I've looked around the rest of Australia, and I think we're pretty slow adopters here in New South Wales. So we've definitely got the most to move. But regardless, we need to be paying more per cup, and consumers just need to accept that actually a good cup of handcrafted coffee is in a good environment, and fit outs and everything have gone up and equipment's getting more expensive. I think cafes, if they're going to survive, just have to put their prices up and significantly. I think we're, I think that's a critical, it has to happen at that level and then flow back down through the industry.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think you might have something to say on that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I was just going to say, I think Saxon already said it, but I think the more we can help cafe owners understand the price increase in a cup as like a cents per cup, and it actually ends up being really quite sensible when you break it down for them, because it really only ends up being like a couple of cents, not even that, per cup, when you actually show them how the increase goes into play. So yeah, I think that's some great ways. I've heard other roasters doing that with their cafe customers, like breaking it down into that cents per cup kind of sort of way.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for indulging me on my tangent then, guys. It is a really important conversation to have, as we have these conversations about forecasting and managing our procurement of raw goods and the green coffee that we're using. It is really important to understand these cost increases are actually affecting and how they flow. So as Sax mentioned, it traditionally, with a stable market, the industry as a whole, we haven't moved the dial on the expectation for the cost of a cup of coffee. So it is really exciting to see roasters like yourselves and representatives in our industry driving that message to actually increase the value of that product and really have that communication. And it is a funny one, but it really does come down to that communication. So in these trialing times with the volatile market, it forces roasters and traders to communicate more effectively. We did always communicate because we needed to, but it forces us, even with roasters and cafes, to communicate more effectively about what's happening and to build stronger relationships to then be able to provide that value and communication down the line. So yeah, thank you very much for that, guys. That was very, very insightful. So just to jump for another question, this is probably open to everyone, so I'll pass it around the panel, but it would be good to hear if you could provide any advice. So obviously we're moving into 2023, and obviously procurement and purchasing of coffee happens in different life cycles and scales and things at the moment. But if there was any advice you could provide to roasters moving into the new year, or a tip that you would recommend for them to do, is there anything that comes to mind? I might pass back to one of our traders to start off, give our roasters a break after I've been bugging them for a little bit. Would you want to start for us, Dave? Any thoughts on that, mate?
Oh, I knew you were going to come to me first on that one. I mean, I'm going to sort of, one thing a roaster can do really, really well is understand their costs and know their volumes and their forecasting, and have conversations with, and this is, self-deprecating, you have conversations with many different traders as well, and understand what they supply, what they use, and what their ethos is in the way they sell and what kind of coffees they use. Options as a roaster is probably your best friend. And as we've sort of said, there has been times that we've gone through over the last, 2 years where shipments have been delayed and prices have changed. So if you have different options from different importers, that is your friend, that what you can reach out to at different times. And I will never begrudge a roaster for having multiple contacts in multiple different places. I mean, looking around the panel here, I've either with or for everybody on this list here, or dealt with everybody there. So, our industry is way too small to not talk to everybody and not have those options there. So that's probably the best advice I can give, and just know what you're going to use and when you're going to use it, and plan it out as best as possible. And if you are planning stuff well ahead, then you can either mitigate any surprises that come, or at least see them coming into the future and you're aware of them.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for that, mate. Thanks for being so open about it, because it is a conversation that naturally, in a scenario where we all work in the same industry, there is the opportunity for competition and things like that. But it is understanding that for a roaster, there naturally is the opportunity of building strong relationships with multiple people, and actually enriching those relationships to be able to handle volatile times, or have options and opportunities for different products and product lines. Is there any thoughts from any of the other, either Kyle, have you got something for us, mate?
Yeah.
Thanks, bud.
No, I think Dave makes a good point on looking at options. I think we can use Colombia as an example from last year, like when I guess a lot of roasters can log on and look at the C market, but what they don't understand is where differentials are sitting from origin to origin.
Mm.
So I guess working with your traders to look at other options. If it's within your ethos or business model to shift origins, then maybe diffs in Colombia are plus 70, but you can find a similar profile in another origin to help your cost of goods at plus 30 or something like that. So I think don't be afraid to ask your traders for advice on other options, replacements, working through those different scenarios together.
I think that's a really good point you've touched on there, Kyle, is obviously that differential factor. So a lot of roasters started to have to be a lot more conscious about the C market, but then also understanding the other granular things that are affecting this, because there is other layers to these, like the differentials, but then also understanding that we've had luxuries of maybe potentially fixed products from certain areas, or being able to have a large range of our products facilitated by a certain origin, that maybe we have to look at the opportunity of diversifying that. So yeah, it is really interesting to kind of, once again, that rich communication has the opportunity to understand, okay, there are differentials, and what are these, and how is this actually affecting this opportunity for me to be purchasing this type of coffee at a time?
Yeah, and I think that also plays into planning ahead and trying to buy around the seasons as well.
Yeah.
If you understand the seasonality of coffee, you can usually, with the support of a trader who's in contact with the origin teams, trying to pick the best time in the season where differentials are at the optimal time to contract and things like that. So working around seasonality, planning, like Rudy said earlier, minimum 6 months in advance, if possible. Would be my advice.
Yeah, awesome. What about yourself, Rudy? I think the boys probably covered most of it, but you might have something.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was going to make the same point that Kyle just did on planning ahead. For me, that's the key part. Planning for the next 6 months, not chasing. It's very tempting right now to wait for the C to come back down, to just wait another week. And I've seen so many roasters look at the foreign exchange as well and say, hey, the forecast for the end of the week is 72 and we're still at 67, and they keep chasing and chasing. And there's only so long, you can carry on doing that. And, to touch on what both Anne and Saxon said about, buying spots and having to change strategy, especially at, over the last 6 to 12 months, I think that a lot of traders have refrained from taking long positions. And by long positions, I mean by building inventory, physical inventory. So there's a lot less coffee available in warehouses. So you can't really expect for your usual coffee to always be available at any point, anytime. Just make a phone call and get it. That might not happen. At some point when the coffee is gone, it's gone. So I would say, it could be good to get familiar with harvests. I carried a survey with, I think, 25 or 30 roasters of our customers. And I think it was 90% of respondents were either I am somewhat familiar with harvests or I am not familiar with harvests. And I would assume that in the somewhat familiar with harvests, there's a lot of people who didn't want to say, I don't really know when coffee is being harvested where. That could really be a powerful tool as well. So for example, right now, pretty much every Central American country has started harvesting coffee. So, December, January, February, like the next 3 months are prime time to plan your central purchases. So think about it, talk to, Dave mentioned it, talk to a lot of people around, see what prices are. what the different products and qualities are, and plan for the next 10 months or so.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that, mate. I might pass over if Anne or Saxon, if you guys have any advice or tools that you'd recommend for people to implement in their purchasing going forward. I might pass to you first, Anne. I saw you were very excited by some of those points.
Exactly what the boys said. But just like as always, just be prepared to pivot and change, when needed. And also, make sure that we're roasting and we're selling our coffee at the right price, so we can always generate the right amount of profit to keep on buying the green that we want to buy. And just plan.
Yeah, awesome. What about yourself, Sax?
Yeah, I guess to follow on. I mean, I think for us, it's about being balanced and not being not racing or not waiting until things are too late. So to Rudy's point, like if you need coffee, plan and book it. I think you can wait too long and then you put yourself at a real risk. So I think having a really balanced and steady hand and just keep doing business as usual and adjust the business to cope with those changes anyway. And yeah, things are looking a little better at the moment, but for how long? And there's still lots of risks. So I think still taking a balanced medium-term perspective. Maybe long's too hard because it's too volatile, but short's too risky as well. So I think it's having a good balanced medium-term view and just managing that well, and being prepared to get on board and actually put decent orders in, because then you get the consistency and continuity of your product, which is critical. So I think that balance is helpful.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a great little piece of advice to not to be willing to even still purchase. Like you said, short term is too risky at the moment. So still looking to do that medium and to be comfortable to actually make those decisions within your financial structures. But having those financial structures are important, and having that planning, as Ian mentioned, is really important. So I will just mention to the group, I have seen a question coming through, but if there are any questions, guys, you can just send them through now. We'll have a quick discussion with the team. There was a couple pre-entered. I did jump ahead on the price of a cup one, but I've got one that's just come through. Oh, okay. So we have a question that's come through, and I apologize. I am terrible at pronunciation, so I apologize if I pronounce anyone's name wrong, but I think it's Murtaza has just sent through. I'd love to know from the panel what they generally look at when deciding what coffee they want to buy. So I understand the quality is important, but the specific metrics roasters generally look at. Also, when should a importer reach out during the year? So talking from an importer's perspective, what are the characteristics or what are the things you're looking at when purchasing coffee? I might go to you for that one to start with, Anne.
Well, I mean, ultimately, when we're buying a coffee, we've got to think about where in our portfolio of products is that coffee going to go? And does it satisfy, obviously, flavor, desires? But then we've got to start going through the checklist in terms of pricing. How long do we want that product to last for? In terms of how long do we need it for? As Saxon's really been driving that point home about consistency in our products. Then, so we've got that whole checklist but ultimately is, where is it going in our portfolio of products? And then, pricing, flavor, availability, how much is available, how much can we afford to secure, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's what I sort of consider. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Was there any thoughts from yourself on that, Sax?
Yeah, just narrowing it down to the 20 variables.
Yeah.
I mean, there are lots of factors, and I guess blends versus single origins. I mean, single origins are probably easier to manage just because they've got a specific price and potential customer in mind. From a blend point of view, I guess it's how do they fit in and how do they work with other coffees is probably the other thing I'd add, is how do they partner, and how do you stage that in and out? So as Central America comes on and you have access to new coffees, how are you integrating that into a blend and phasing out maybe another coffee, as it's getting to the end? So I guess the extra piece that I'd say is, because Anne pretty much said it, but is to think about how blends transition. And so that's something we think about, is how to manage the in and outs and depending on the volume we've got of a certain blend or a component within, so that the end profile stays consistent, I guess, is the goal for us, as opposed to it being a fixed 30% Colombian and a fixed percentage of somewhere else or whatever. It's we look at it more dynamically at a profile level, and so those coffees have to work together as a team.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that, mate. I think it's really important, and as you said, and there is a list. There's 20 variables that need to be taken into account. It's not the simplicity of going tick this box and that solves the problem. It's actually, and it's a nuanced thing, because at different times, as Saxon mentioned, different things need to be checked off, and there is a scale about the sustainability of a product. And I know that both yourselves work really, really hard on knowing how is a product produced and where's it come from and things like that. But that also has to work in a business environment. So there are quite a nuanced list of things that need to be managed in that space. So it's not as simple as tick this box and that's going to work for me. It has to actually be quite a dynamic thing. So once again, as everyone in the panel has mentioned today, planning is really important, because you can plan what those requirements are for you as a company or that particular blend, and you can actually then use those fixed requirements to go and be looking for those replacement products. Another one that we did have pre-entered, which is quite an interesting one. We did touch on it a little bit earlier, and it is hard, but I think there is a general sometimes perspective externally towards the C price. So there was the question of, do we see the C price leveling back to pre-pandemic pricing? It would be interesting to hear from anyone, particularly on this, guys, because personally, I think it is quite a challenging question, because it's a little bit, yeah, crystal ball, as you're saying there, Anne. But does anyone have any thoughts on the C market and the progression over the kind of short next 6 months? Dave?
Next 6 months, I am not brave enough to offer an opinion on that at all. And I will go back to sort of my previous statement. If you
Smart man.
If you want to gamble, go to the casino.
Yeah.
And before my time in green, and I'm going to sort of look to Coops and Saxon for this as well, because I actually not 100% sure of the date, but we were looking at prices not that far in the past of $3 USD per pound. And I don't see many roasters go asking when we were going to get back to those prices. Farmers, sure, but there is a long-term average price, and I'm shooting from the hip a little bit, of 136 USD per pound as a long-term kind of 10-year average of a price.
Yes.
So that's what I would be looking at, is when we're getting to that long-term average, rather than when we're getting to sort of around the dollar per pound. And just one thing, if you cast your mind back sort of 2 years, 3 years, there was articles and write-ups in so many places about, we need to, as importers and roasters, we need to pay more for coffee because farmers will rip up plants and plant other things and do that. We don't see those conversations anymore. So the market price it goes in waves. It goes from highs to lows. When the market is high, farmers are happy. When the market is low, roasters are happy. And if you have a long-term strategy to ride those fluctuations out, that is much better than, as I think we've all said, waiting for it to go down to prices that are historical lows. And if you are basing your business success and profitability on long-term historical lows, that is not an ideal strategy for success. I'm not going to say it's wrong. I'll just say it's not an ideal strategy.
Very, very diplomatic of you there, mate. I like that.
I try, man.
I think that's a really good point as well, because there is obviously, with the volatility and potentially a generation of roasters who have maybe not experienced this, or potentially they weren't in an owning status the last time we were experiencing those $3 a USD per pound coffees. I think it's interesting for them to have that understanding that it's not racing back down here. And I think this is where, for myself, I am quite an advocate for coffee traders in this space. And there is a lot of rhetoric about removing coffee traders and all this, direct trade, which has a really good element to it. But my thing is about, you can actually facilitate amazing direct trade relationships that are sustainable through traders, because the clean and simple of it is, when a roaster wants to buy coffee, a farmer usually doesn't want to sell it. And when a farmer wants to sell coffee, a roaster doesn't want to buy it. And it takes very nuanced, skilled, and well-structured companies which are trading houses, to facilitate and manage those relationships. So when it comes to when is the price going to get back, it's more important that we actually build structures around our costs as a roaster and how we can structure it so we can be managing through this rather than, you know, sitting and waiting and counting the beans until we can place another order. Was there any other thoughts around that? It is not the nicest question to answer, but you might have some thoughts on that, Sax.
Yeah, I just hope it does stay up, to be honest. I mean, I think,
awesome.
you know, otherwise it's a fight to the bottom, right? And no one wins. And so I think, you know, really, if it stays up, I think it's a good thing. And I think the stress that we've all experienced, the stress in the system, has forced, you know, an actual change right through. And I think for what it's worth, I think it's a great thing. So I actually agree wholeheartedly with that, mate. I think that's an amazing kind of silver lining perspective to it, because yes, it has been challenging, but it is forcing our industry to innovate and to actually learn how to manage this. And then we are having a really important conversation like we had earlier about, okay, how do we communicate that we need to put the price of an actual coffee in a cafe up? That was a much easier conversation not to have when we had an element of able to buy coffees at $1 USD a pound, and we could not have to put it up. But now we do have to. We can actually have these really progressive and informative conversations, which create a different value structure long term for all stakeholders, from producer through to roaster as well. All right,
actually, Caleb, just on that one, I just wanted to take the more pessimistic approach and more counter argument to what Saxon said.
This is what our forum is for, Rudy. I love it.
No, I feel like, you know, at the end of the day, coffee is a commodity. It's traded in large volumes, and there isn't a lot of differentiation. It's easily replaceable. You know, yes, there's different beans have different profiles, but at the end of the day, you can substitute one bean for another. And, you know, we're talking about the race to the bottom. The problem is that when you can't offer a differentiation, or, you know, offer extra value for your customers to pay for, it does become a cost war. It's whoever can offer the better price is going to end up winning the contract. And to me, it feels like I don't see that happen in the next 6 months, but I feel like eventually we'll revert to that particular dynamic. You know, we see David mentioned that when prices are high, coffee farmers are going to plant more trees. There's a lot of people becoming coyotes and going around buying green coffee from farmers, selling it to coffee mills, and, you know, it's a booming industry in producing countries. That usually takes 3 or 4 years to really show, because of the time it takes for trees to grow and start producing their first crops. So you end up with cycles of like low supply, high demand, and then that drive prices up. So then there's more coffee production, and then you have a high supply, and that drives prices down. So my view is that on the long term, you would actually revert back to possibly $1 a pound on the, you know, I'm thinking, you know, possibly 3 years-ish. But then there's always the unknown. Is there going to be another war? Is the war in Ukraine going to turn nuclear? Is climate change going to affect the coffee industry so much that Arabica production is going to be massively reduced? That would push prices up. But in terms of pure supply and demand, I think prices would eventually go back down.
Yeah, and I appreciate that perspective on it wholeheartedly, because naturally the supply and demand, as you mentioned, it does have these natural flows. I think the state, from my perspective, that we're in at the moment is there are ulterior effects on the market as well. So obviously there is that opportunity that when we are having a increase in price on the C price, there is that opportunity for potentially more producers to be planting or looking to produce more in the future. But I think the big challenge we're seeing is the global recession that is actually in the works at the moment as well, that is affecting the cost of that management. So the big thing was you potentially would have heard, and there was a lot of amazing articles that came out about the cost of fertilizer, particularly in Colombia. So the cost of putting new product in and the cost of managing new product is also at a high at the same time. So I think that is actually going to be delaying that uptake of producers producing more coffee in that 3 to 4 year window, because of the cost of actually facilitating that right now is very high with it. So there is those interesting things, and I do agree that there will be a correction in the market. That will, you know, whether it's a correction or not, but I think there will be changes always in supply and demand. But as maybe similar to what Saxon landed on, I think there's potentially it has adjusted potentially for a more long term, in my opinion. But once again, this is where we're all sitting with crystal balls and trying to pick out the future. But it is important conversation to have to understand, because historically, 100% true. We go through a financial crisis, we see a price change for whatever reasons, we hit the $3 mark, and then it does naturally kind of gravitate back. But it is an interesting one to kind of to muse about, and to be having this open conversation about is really important, I think. Awesome. All righty, guys. So there is one last question that we will jump on quickly before we finish up this part of the session. So just to jump on finally, it would be, if anyone particularly, you can jump in to kick it off, but it's someone asking, and obviously we talked about the replacement of coffees or looking to adjust our strategy on selecting maybe certain coffees for our blends and things like that, or our offer list. Is there an origin or a project that you've seen that you're really excited about actually coming to market or doing something in the next 12 months or in the near future? So is there an origin, or is there something that you're like, hey, that's something really excited that I'm excited to see get to market that maybe hasn't been there before? I might pass to Anne for this one. I think you might have something for us. No? All right. No, nothing from anyone?
Maybe, I don't know, I've seen a bit of a resurgence of like coffee from Ecuador, whether that's just my naivety and not using it a whole lot, but I'm seeing it becoming a little bit more available. And I mean, I just recently used it in the roasting course, and I'm sort of seeing coffees like that, but I know it's always been there, but I just I've seen it. Yeah.
If you were to compare the more kind of generic flavor profile of an Ecuador, what would you compare it to?
I mean, the one I had was beautiful. It was really sweet and balanced, lots of red fruit, chocolate malt, those kind of flavors. So it could be, a really good blend component, but also play really well as a single.
Amazing.
Yeah, I don't know, it's just something, an origin I haven't looked at for a while. So I was just quite surprised by it. Yeah.
What about yourself, Dave?
I was actually going to say Ecuador as well.
There you go.
For the same reasons. Yeah, it's, I mean, and we'll agree with this. Like when I first started at FTA, we both worked with Charlie Requat, who just came out of Ecuador, doing some work there as well.
Of course.
It was in the back of my mind for that. And we're talking, 7-8 years ago or whatever it was. And I would see it very, very spasmodically around. I think I may have had 2 cups in that time from different roasters or a sample sent out. And coming to PO, like we had a container coming in of Ecuador coffees, and I knew that was coming, and there was a delayed shipment, so that's another fun factor altogether. But with that in mind, I've just seemed to see a lot of importers and a lot of roasters starting to pick up Ecuador and it being a thing. So I'm glad that was sort of reinforced by Coops as well. And I think it's a very exciting origin going forward.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. I can say I've never tried an Ecuadorian coffee, so I'll keep an eye out. I'm very excited to try one. Rudy, did you have something on the?
Yeah. For me, I mean, it's not necessarily a new origin, but I see it coming back. It's Papua New Guinea.
Yes.
I think for a long time, Papua New Guinea has suffered from, average producing conditions and maybe grades being gamed a little bit and always being reliable. But this is changing quite rapidly now. The government changed the grading system, I think, a couple of years ago now. Importers are really, upping their games as well. And they are beautiful coffees coming from Papua New Guinea, really cost efficient is what I would say. And we see some high-end coffees as well, like scoring solid AC 86, 87, beautiful washed coffees. And it's a country that is very close by. It takes about 20 days to ship from there. So really short transit time. The harvest period is quite long as well. So I think it's an origin that roasters should look into.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree on that one, mate. For me personally, over my career, the biggest change that I've seen in quality of production from an origin has been P&G. So from where it started and traditionally was quite a leathery, heavier product. So then it's actually, you mentioned that the government changed the scoring structure. I wasn't aware of that, but that time frame lines up very, very efficiently with my increased value of that type of coffee and the quality that I was perceiving from P&G coffee. So it is a really exciting origin. Yeah. Awesome. All righty, guys. Well, I'll thank you all for your time. I did take a little bit extra of it, but I do really appreciate it. It is also just an amazing opportunity to once have you all here and to be able to provide an opportunity for the coffee industry to understand we are facing the same challenges. We've been through a wild time. Everyone have a break, have a beer, have a coffee over Christmas, whatever you need, have a breath. You've done it. We're going into another year. It's going to be full on. But just to understand that we are all in it as traders, as roasters, we are all experiencing these challenges and we are finding ways to navigate them. So we appreciate your time, everyone from our panelists. So thank you very much. I'll draw that little claps for everyone for coming on board. But what we will do now, guys, is we'll jump in quickly because as I mentioned at the start of the session, we have actually got our first live deployment of the beta for greensquare, which I'll get Jan, our co-founder, to hop back up. I am zero tech savvy, so I'll get Jan to jump up to start the presentation from that side. But for the rest of our panelists, thank you so much, guys. And if you wouldn't mind just turning your camera off for the rest of the session, the next 10 minutes, and we'll take everyone through a little sample.
Thanks, Caleb.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All righty, Jan, how are we, mate?
I'm good. Thanks for the discussion. I liked it a lot, actually. So if you allow me to share my screen, I'll do right away.
No worries. I already prefaced everyone that I wasn't the tech savvy, so let me go. Should be good for you now, mate.
Yes, works perfectly.
Awesome. All right, guys. So just as Jan's getting that ready, I'm going to take the opportunity to kind of just introduce, obviously we explained greensquare and our solution, but introducing some of the core functions for you guys as well. So as Jan's on the display here, this is what we're calling our version 0.1 beta. So this is actually the test platform, and we will be able to provide access to this for everyone from tomorrow, which is really exciting. And we'll explain what's actually functional, what you're able to do at this time. But what I would like to start with is to actually focus on some of the core features and products that we have available and modules we have available. But what greensquare is greensquare is built to facilitate the entire procurement process in one complete space from all of your trading partners. So as we can see on the left-hand side, we have our main module display. So to start out, we have the source module. This is where we can search for products, and we will be going through that shortly. We then have the opportunity to shortlist, where we can manage products during our procurement process. We then have our sample area, and this is where we can track, manage samples every step of the way with updates and understanding of where it's at. We then move on to our quotes, and in the quote area, we have the ability to see active or archived quotes that we're working on with traders. We can also have them timed so we can see when we need to action them. And then once we have a quote that's accepted and agreed, we can digitally sign a contract on greensquare, and then creates a live position attached to the contract for both parties, the roaster and the trader, to be able to view. And once this live contract and position is available, we then have the ability to place orders through our order module, and we can actually see and view orders as they're there. And then finally, we have the payments, where we can facilitate and manage all the respective payments of these orders. So what we're going to focus on to start with today is during what we're in for the end of this year is what we're calling our testing phase of the beta. So we are testing, we aren't allowing all of the actions to be available just yet for some testing reasons, but we are actually allowing people to log in. So what we have during this testing phase, we have the opportunity to see our source function. So Jan, would you be able to just take us through live on the platform, a quick search for, maybe we'll search for a Brazilian coffee.
Yeah, sure. So let me start by correcting you. This is not our test platform, Caleb. This is actually our live platform. So if you log on to it, you can create or register as a user, as a trader, or as a roaster now, and this will be your account that you could use in the future as well. So we have test data on it right now. That's true, but it's not the test platform. It's actually the live platform. So we have a different test platform where we have those components you're just talking about. We have those for testing there. So that's why they're disabled here, because this is live. All right.
Amazing.
Sorry to correct you. I'm logged in as a roaster. Actually with your account, Caleb. And just to warn you, this is a bit slow. It's not the system that's slow, but I'm based in Berlin, and our system is hosted in Sydney, Australia. So even data takes half a second to get processed. So that's why it looks a bit slower, because yeah, I'm not where the app is hosted. All right, so we start. We have our as a roaster. We have as a start page the source function where you can look for coffee. You have the opportunity to go for specific regions. You can browse all origins if you want to, or you can just use specific countries and for processes if you want to. Let's just quickly jump into, you wanted Brazilian, right? Let's jump into Brazilian coffees just real quick. And that loading screen is what I meant when saying the speed is not, it's different when you log into the platform from Australia. So this is a list of all coffees, or all Brazilian coffees we have on here now. Do you want to look into one specific one, or do you want me to actually kind of go into detail about the search function and how it's ranked? Because this is kind of interesting. Yeah, especially for traders, this is maybe interesting on how to know how to maybe have a better listing. It's very simple actually. You have obviously different search criteria. We will have more filters in the future. This is just for the basic functionality now, but we will have more filters coming right here. But the more criteria you hit, obviously, the higher your rank, but also not all the information you put in a listing are mandatory. So the more information you fill, the higher you ranked in this listing or in this list of results. That means the more the roasters can see in your product, the higher it is ranked actually.
Yeah, so I think as like a bit of a summary, it's the way we've structured this, and this is part of our testing during beta. So as for a lot of our members who are on the session this afternoon are actually beta members, if anyone is interested in becoming a beta member, you can register through our platform, and we can send all the links out for that for you guys. But it is just giving you the opportunity that what we're trying to do here is encourage the richness of information about a coffee is going to present that coffee more readily to you. So it's encouraging that the more we can know about a product, the better. Awesome. So as we can see, Jan's clicked on one of our listings here for us, and we takes us to a detailed page. Here we can see all the rich information that a trader has provided about this coffee. Sorry guys, 1 second. There we go. You still got me now. So we can see all that rich information that's provided about a coffee, and we can actually review it. In the top right-hand corner, we can actually look to chat with our trader. So we can actually then look to even request a sample or request a quote. And this is actually starting a communication which is fixed between the two parties there. One thing I would like to touch on, Jan, if we could just outline where we have price guide. It's really important for us to communicate to everyone and for everyone to understand how price is communicated on the platform. So on the platform as a roaster, if I have never interacted or connected with a trader, we will, under price guide, we will see request price. And then we have to start a connection, and that connection then will notify the trader, and the trader has the opportunity to allow us to see price guides, or to allow us to see other things, or even to set payment terms to us. And this is the first status. So we have no visibility until that connection is the first status. The next status is once we have that visibility, we see the price guide, and the price guide is a reference to basically the base or the highest cost of that product available. The next status we transfer through is then once we hit the request quote, and we provide all the necessary information required for what we're going to actually need for this coffee. So the volume, the time frame, we have our fixed delivery requirements. We can all understand that what's required. The trader then is able to provide what we call a quoted price. And this price follows a fundamental of ours, which is our user permission scheme. So this price is only visible between the trader and the roasting entity that are negotiating it. So it is not visible for anyone else except for those two parties. And also at that time, with a very volatile market, the trader has the opportunity to set a time frame that is available for. So they may say, hey, this is only available for close of business, because I think it was Rudy and some of the guys mentioned we might have a 10-cent swing overnight, or there's a lot of volatility. So it can actually have that fixed time frame on it. The final stage is once we've received our quoted price between the two entities and both parties have agreed on it, We then sign the digital contract and we have a contracted price. Once again, applying by our user permission schemes, this is only visible between the two parties. And this is a price that is fixed as to the terms of the contract that it is fixed within. So that's just a little update about the flow of that communication. And it's the ability for traders to control who can see their price guides and who can't, and having that control over that side of it there. Awesome, guys. One last thing I might point on, it was on all the small product tiles when we search, but there is a little love heart icon in the top right-hand corner there. I might get you to explain that one and some of the functionalities of that for us, Jan.
Yeah, sure. So obviously this is kind of it says here on the button right there, it's you can shortlist coffee. So if you click on it, you can either create a new shortlist because you are about to search a coffee for a new blend, because you have to substitute, for example, a coffee, and then you just make a list of for coffees that might fit that need, or you have an existing list and then you can just click it and add it to your this shortlist, or add it to two shortlists. Actually, if you want to, by creating a new one, you just call it Caleb's list maybe, and then you have it there, and you can add it to Caleb's list, and yeah, then you have it shortlisted. If you go to shortlist right here on the left in the menu, you can see the new shortlist, Caleb's list, sorry, and also that this coffee is on the other list as well here that I just added. And you can remove coffees from here, so it's just like a normal favorite or shortlist page, but it's good to understand that you can have as many as you want. And especially for roasters, these are not on a base on a user base. These shortlists, these are on an organization base. So if you have a team as a roaster, you have a team of your company or of your organization, you share this shortlist with your colleagues actually, so that you can work on them and your colleagues as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that, mate. This is a really interesting tool for us to be able to allow roasters to start to do some planning and things like this. So with what we've described, our first deployment of greensquare is, we describe it as our digital foundation. So these are our foundational tools. We are really lucky with some of obviously our panel members and our cornerstone partners to actually have outlined and identified future features that are actually able to roll into this, which are really, really exciting. But one last thing I think would be really nice to be able to show everyone today, Jan, would we be able to show a trader page?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
So let's just take this one. From every listing detail page, you can see the trader's seller page if you want to. And then you have a list of all coffees this particular trader has to offer, and also a view of their team that's connected with the platform, so you can talk to or chat with them right away if needed.
So this function is a really good opportunity for a roaster to potentially, they have their favorite traders that they like to work with, and they can actually see them. They can start a discussion. They can browse their current offering list, and they can look to action it from there. Whether they're just shortlisting at this time, they can shortlist directly from here, and shortlist on the top right hand corner as Jan's doing for us there. If we wanted to go, oh, that's interesting, let's add it. And it gives us the opportunity to then also have that discussion as a roasting team about a product, because we may have multiple members who have access to this and are watching this. Awesome, Jan. I think that's pretty much all that we were going to show through. We did have a little a mention about asking to see the trader's perspective. We won't have time for that today, guys. We have already gone a little bit over our session, sorry, but we will be releasing access to the trader's side, and we will be releasing some content for that as well. Oh, you're doing a quick one for us now.
Yeah, I can just open it. So your account is connected to traders as well. So you're part of the traders as well. So we can switch if you want. Just change it really quick. So the menu is the same. Just they don't, like, traders can't search for coffee, but they have listings, for example, would look like this. Just
Yeah, and well, since you've done it, I'm going to go into a little rabbit hole now. So no, that's all good, mate. So one of the things here is this is obviously a listing. So this is how the traders can manage their listings. Just one cool feature, we will have to wrap up soon, but one cool feature I really like is the status. So it's the ability to have the listing on the platform, but not have it visible to anyone. So we can actually control when it's live and when it's not live. And then we have the ability to duplicate listings and things as such. The last thing is really cool is the ability to actually, every time a trader adds a listing, they create their own separate silo of a trader's what we call like listing inventory. So next year, if you're looking to type this in, it starts to automatically generate if you've used this coffee or this producer or this region or area before. So it reduces the time frame of actually importing that information every time, which is quite exciting. Awesome. All righty, guys. Well, that's the end of our session today. I obviously, as we mentioned, the beta part of the platform will be live from tomorrow. So we will have an email going out to all of our beta members and the people from the session today. You will have access to the recording of today's session, as well as having access to be able to log in. So what we're able to do during this test phase is we're able to start to set up and prepare ourselves for when the whole platform is live, and we're able to start to sample, quote, and place contracts and orders in 2023. So what we can do is we can log in and set up our user account. We can set up our organizations. Under organizations, we have some different details that we can start to input to structure, maybe our delivery requirements and such. We also, as a trader, we have the ability to onboard and to start to get our organization, our team members, and also start to get familiar with having listings ready. So when we do hit the ground running in 2023, we can, everyone's ready to go and they can make the most of the platform from the outset. So as mentioned, guys, this is what we describe greensquare's digital foundation. So the digital foundation, we've found endless opportunities to add features and functions to enhance value at every step of the process. With one exciting feature that's at the top of our list that we're excited to let everyone know about is an integration with Cropster. So we do have a partnership with Norbert and the team at Cropster to be seamlessly integrating orders from Greensquare to your roasting software. This is something that we haven't deployed or developed yet, but this is on the top of our list to have ready for everyone. So the idea behind this, guys, is no longer are we having to manually upload inventory from a PDF or a invoice that has come to us when we place an order. It's the ability to scan and integrate, not having to compromise any of the richness of the information about our coffee that we are then managing in our roasting software, which is really, really exciting. We see that particular feature as what we describe as the tip of the iceberg of potential innovations that are presented when we are looking to develop and to grow Greensquare for the market. All right, guys, we will wrap up there. I just want to take a quick last second to thank all of our panelists for today. So thank you for your time. They're extremely busy people, especially at this time of year. Thank you, Jan, for getting up very early and taking the time to take us through that presentation there as well, mate. But from myself, Jan, and the whole team at Greensquare, we want to thank you all for coming along and actively playing your part in supporting the future of coffee trade. It takes forward thinkers and innovators such as yourself to not only see the need for change, but to actively take part in it. So from everyone at Greensquare, we wish you all a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. And if we don't talk to you before then, we're excited to see you all in 2023 and hit the ground running. Thanks for your time today, guys, and we'll all talk soon.
Bye-bye.
See you, mate.